Next, we're going to discuss the demonstration of the Mepalex foam dressing for prevention of pressure injuries underneath a trach device. The Mepalex foam dressing order number is 294199. The Mepalex foam dressing looks a little bit different than the Mepalex Light in that it's white in color. It's a little bit thicker, but it's very similar in the fact that it has the same SafeTech gentle adhesive backing, and we'll discuss the benefits of the backing in a little bit. So as far as the cutting for the Mepalex dressing for the trach, there's a couple of different options. One is the Y cut. So typically what I'll do is I'll just take my scissors and I'll cut a little bit of a Y in the dressing. You can also cut the dressing down to fit the patient's neck a little bit better. Sometimes the necks are a little bit shorter in length, so you can cut the dressing down. We also ask that you date the dressing and know that the dressing actually has a 7-day wear time. The change will depend on the amount of phlegm or saturation of the dressing, so you want to pay attention to that and change the dressing as needed up to 7 days. So after you have the dressing dated, then you can remove the backing sheets. I like to leave the backing sheets on when I cut, because if you take them off, the dressing kind of sticks to the scissors and it makes it a little bit more challenging. So I leave the backing sheets on to cut, but then once I'm ready to apply, or I remove the backing sheets and then apply the trach dressing. And once you put it around the trach, I like to kind of push it down around the tube area itself. If you can do that, that creates a seal around the tube and allows the dressing to protect the peri wound from any kind of maceration. So that's another tip for applying the trach dressing. Now, another cut that you can do for the trach is called the snowflake cut. So typically what I'll do is I'll take the dressing, another Mepalex foam dressing, I'll fold it in 4s like a snowflake, and then I'll cut the tip off. Again, you'll notice that this dressing has some cushion to it, which is great for the trachs. It also is thicker, so it can absorb more drainage than the Mepalex Border Light. You can see that one's much thinner than the Mepalex foam, so we definitely recommend the thicker dressing for the trachs. So once you cut your snowflake dressing, you can cut it down again if you need to, just to fit the neck, and then apply it. Make sure you date the dressing and then apply it to the trach. And there you can see, I like to kind of wrap the dressing around and make sure there's like a seal right here just to absorb the drainage. So you can see that the dressing is really doing a nice job of protecting against that pressure and also can absorb some of that drainage. Now, I know some of you are probably asking, well, how does that work if the trach is really tied tight to the patient? I hear concerns that sometimes it's really hard to get the thicker dressing underneath this device, and that's totally understandable. If that's the case and it's too tight and you can't get this thick dressing underneath, then we recommend that you go to the Mepalex Light and cut it again for the trach and slide that underneath there. It's important to at least have something underneath there just to prevent some of the pressure and some of the friction and rubbing of the device on the patient. So something is better than nothing, I guess is what we say. Something else to consider also in your practice, this might be something to discuss with the surgeons or the RT staff, is the possibility of applying the dressing with the initial application of the trach before they tie it down. We're seeing more and more providers start to implement the dressing as part of the application with the trach device to prevent the pressure injuries. So something again to consider if you're not doing that already. So again, there's 2 methods to cut the dressing. You can either do the snowflake method or you can cut the Y into the dressing. And that would be the application of the trach.